Well, that's not funny. So I have words with that guy next time I see him, which will be next year now. But it might not be his fault. That might be how he bought it in. But basically, it's 4 separate plants, and some of them are tiny. You know, I mean, that is far from a mature plant. It's got next to no roots. But all I can do is remount this. I'll mount it as a single plant. Just leave some space between the plants. I mean, that one's got a sort of new root. That one will make it okay. That one's just starting some roots. But I can see what's happened here is that this has been broken off of a piece of bark with the pieces of bark attached. Now they can stay attached, that's not a problem. Those bits of bark that it's already on, if I try and get those off, any roots that are underneath are just going to get damaged. So, I mean, can't do anything with that. And that may or may not make it. Well, all I can do is mount it and see what happens. As I say, every piece has new growths on it, so there's no sort of totally dead pieces. But I'm going to get some moss in underneath it so that it stays hydrated. As I said earlier, this comes from monsoony type places. So it's used to being very wet in its growing season and probably doesn't get any chance at all to dry out. Well, that's not what it was getting on that. So I would suggest that the new growths are weak at the moment because there isn't enough hydration there. So I can soon fix that. So I'm just going to get that mounted up on a piece of proper bark with some moss. And you know, keep the backside of the plant hydrated. But I'm glad I took that off the mount and didn't leave it any longer. That needs to be dealt with straight away to give all of those pieces a chance. So yeah, I better get on with that. A bit disappointed. That guy normally sells good plants. That's where I got my Dendrobium nesta from. Smashing plant. It's also where I got my Bulbophyllum Elizabeth Ann Buckleberry. So the guy does do good plants, but that's not one of his better efforts, let's just put it that way. I've just been down in the shed to get a suitable piece of, you know, gnarly bark, and quite honestly the most suitable one is where the old senile lived. And it's still difficult to work out why that keeled over, but I'm confident I know why. Basically it was growing well. You know, it had new growths on it, it was pushing on nicely, and it had some good roots pushing out the back of the plant, but the moss was starting to break down, and instead of dealing with it properly I just teased out the moss, which exposed roots that were used to getting hydrated on a proper basis, and suddenly they were bare rooted. So it set the plant back badly. So down to me. And then having set it back badly, I then gave it a cool dry winter rest and killed it. So we won't be doing that again. That shiny stuff is not Christmas sparkles, that's obviously down in the shed. A slug's obviously crawled over it at some point. But yeah, I'll get that stripped off, get that sterilised, and there'll be plenty of room for those 4 pieces on there. And we'll start again. It happens. It's just the way of the world with the orchids. You make mistakes. If you make the same mistake again, you need your ears boxed, basically. We're supposed to learn by our mistakes. This plant needs hydration in its growing season. It needs to stay hydrated. And it wasn't getting it. It will this time. Okay, that's what I've done with it. The largest piece, which did actually have some roots, old roots, but nonetheless some roots, was also attached to a couple of pieces of bark. Now obviously the bark doesn't hold moisture, but that wasn't cork bark, it was some other bark. So having put that next to moss, that bark will actually get damp. The water will soak into it, and then any roots that are on the underside of it will get hydrated. But the largest piece went on the edge there, that's hanging downwards. That piece near the top right is sort of on sideways, and the two other small pieces I've put one across the bottom and one up through the middle. And now we just have to wait and see. As I said, with new growths pushing out, and all the pieces have some older canes which will support those new growths, you know, because they haven't got very good roots, if any. It should make it. There's no reason why it shouldn't. The roots will come out from those new growths eventually, and now that they've got hydration around them, that's probably going to be sooner rather than later. So there we go, stuck the tag on the back. Don't forget what it is, as if you could forget what that is. There's nothing else like it. So we'll see how it does now. It can be kept hydrated. It can now go back in the grow room where it will not get bright light. This is going to get medium light. Yeah, again, looking at where it comes from, looking at what other people have done. In its growing season, it's quite shaded. You know, it's the old deciduous forest routine again. You know, and when the leaf cover is on the trees, apart from the odd ray of sunshine that gets through a gap, it's shaded. It's not in bright light. So this is its growing season. Let's get some roots, keep it out of the bright light, and give it a chance to get a good hold, and then it's not getting rested in the winter. It'll just stay in the grow room, get watered along with the other mounts as and when I see fit, you know, as the moss dries off, but it's not going to get rested. It's going to get a chance to grow, hopefully, into something decent, and then I'll make the decision the following winter whether I attempt to rest it or not. So chances are in the spring no blooms, don't care. What I want is a strong healthy plant. Don't worry about blooms down the line. Okay, so that's that one done.